Yeah, I'll show you how to get it, but you have to be willing to do the work. The Syndicate, it's a motherfucking movement.
It's the Syndicate.
You ain't gotta be perfect, long as you down to put the work in. If when it comes to the bullshit you allergic, well, you just might be my kind of person. Welcome to the Syndicate, where real estate wholesaling is what the business is. Ain't gotta talk about it when you out here living it, so if you out here getting it, then welcome to the Syndicate. Welcome to the Syndicate. Welcome to the Syndicate.
So I learned early on, after making so many calls, I don't want to talk to the person who's delinquent 3 months. I want a couple of years.
All right, guys, you're listening to another episode of the Real Estate Wholesaling Syndicate podcast. Very excited to be here with Logan Fullmer. We're actually here in his new podcast studio. Logan, thank you so much for joining us today. Actually, thank you for having me here today.
You got it.
So how's it going, man? It's been a bit. What's new with you?
Well, a lot, I guess you could say. In the last probably 6 months, it seems like real estate market is, I don't know that it's recovering to the point of a lot of comfort, but it's finding a place of stability. You know, we were looking for that for so long because when interest rates shot up, we had a lot of softening. We had buyers backing away, lenders not wanting to lend, homeowners, which affects a lot of the real estate market too, just not making a decision to change because the new home at the same price would cost twice as much with higher interest rates every month.
Yeah.
Yeah, that. Commercial lenders were backing off. Everything froze up a lot. Everyone felt it.
Yeah.
You know, and for us, while we like the market going upwards, we don't like it going down. But if it's stable, we're okay. Even if it's stable at a low number, whatever. If it's stable at a high number, that's okay too. So I see a lot of stability coming back in terms of predictability, at least at that point. So for us, that's a big thing.
For sure.
That's good.
No, it's huge. And I know one of the things I love about you, your social media content, you're very open and transparent about everything that's going on. You give such great tactical information and advice too. I see some people who say, like, hey, just go read Logan's post. You can learn so much. I mean, you're really just trying to do a book. But I know you're real transparent, and pretty much everyone I talk to, I interview a lot of people, talk to a lot of people. You know, last year was hard. You know, I know we had to make a lot of pivots and stuff. I know you've talked about it online, but what were some of the pivots and changes you made last year to kind of adapt and, you know, still be successful in a tougher market?
Well, let me frame it first. You know, in my office there are 5 operating businesses, you know, from distressed property to land development to industrial, you know, commercial real estate. So there's a lot going on here. Our total office headcount was 25, probably at 20, 21 range, and today we're at 15. So we have a little bit lower headcount, so we have lower payroll, lower volume. You can expect those things. In the last, we're in 2024, things have stabilized quite a bit, but in 2023, you know, we were working twice as hard for half the money. So thankfully we were still profitable. Where a lot of people were not profitable or took losses, we did still remain profitable, but it reminded me a lot of the early days where we were working really hard. Like in growth phases, you got partners like, you know, there's conflict with what the right decision is, and there's excitement, energy, and just a lot going on. And there was a lot of that, but it was tough because you got to make good decisions. You have to pull things in. Every issue is much more important in a time like last year than it would be the year before. You know, we could mess up on something. We made a mistake a couple times and lost earnest money to the tune of 20 or 30 grand on big commercial deals. And the crazy part is when the market was hot, we didn't realize it because that company would make $600,000, $800,000 that month, and we missed an accounting entry for 20 grand because we didn't get our earnest money refunded back to us when the double closed.
Oh, wow.
So if it's on like a residential deal where you have $10 earnest money, no one even thinks about it. When it's 20 or 30 grand on a $4 million deal, it actually matters.
Right.
So I said all that to say it was a lot more work. One of the things we did do is we backed down towards more of the extreme distress stuff again. You know, when the market got hot, us, much like a lot of other people, started to use big data, lots of people working the phones, lots of virtual assistants. And we used that as our volume went up. And we were looking at low-hanging fruit because there was someone who was willing to pay more than we paid. you could just roll through things with less consequence. But as the market was softening, you can't do that. You have to go back to getting the smoking good deals again.
Right.
So like, for example, most of the time we would buy distress from 20 to 50 cents on the dollar. And we'd sell it for 90 or 100 cents on the dollar. Full price, go to MLS. When the market's going down, you can't do that. Because every month the properties were slightly less than it was the month before. So we're now selling for 90 cents on the dollar. Oh wow, but it won't sell. It's sitting on the market for 3 weeks. We need to lower the price again. Since our basis is less than 50 cents on the dollar, we can afford to lower the price. But if you're a flipper that doesn't have that much margin, you can't.
Right.
If you're wholesaling, you only got a $25,000 assignment fee. Once you lower 25 grand, it's over. You can't do it anymore. So that's some of the stuff we had to be very attentive to and watch our pricing so we could continue to have the sell-through. Thankfully, things have cooled off and stabilized, and we don't have that happening now.
Hey, you probably already heard the news, but we just launched Investor Plug. It's literally an all-in-one system that gives you everything you need to be successful. Everything from a custom CRM designed around your business and how you work, AI chatbot that's state-of-the-art, a marketing funnel designed to generate leads, and so much more. It's basically a business in the box that helps you do more in less time, so you can focus on what really matters, closing deals and making money. Now, some people, they need big teams. Others, they use Investor Plug. So check it out today, investorplug.io. Again, investorplug.io. And let me show you how we can take your business to the next level.
So those are huge things that have happened in the last year.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate you sharing. So let's kind of go on that. And again, going back to some of the things that you did when you first started. So kind of walk us through that. If you're, say you had to start over from scratch, you're alone in the office, you got to get back to the grind, you don't have a marketing budget. What type of list do you pull? Kind of like walk us through what you would do and what step one, and from there, how to start getting deals and get back up.
I like that question because it's very similar approach to how we work in our distressed property coaching program. If we had to start over, I would start a lot like I have guys start when they're buying distressed property. We start with a delinquent tax list. We start with a good data source to get phone numbers and whatnot. And we filter it down and get ourselves a 500 to 1,000 person list and put it in priority, and we start calling them ourselves. You got to get good data from a good data source like the TLOs or something in the world. But you're making phone calls to a higher probability of need to sell people. I always remember saying if something went wrong and I lost all the things I have and everything, I would take a delinquent tax list and I'd get my cell phone and start calling.
Yeah.
And I like those deals. I understand them in a more complicated way today. But even if you don't, you can fumble your way through buying something for less than it's worth when the sellers have to sell so bad.
Right.
So it's a game of odds. You're increasing your odds. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, if you're single and you're going to look for a girlfriend, I don't know, and in a place where a bunch of married people hang out, your odds are terrible.
Right.
Well, you go to the bar, that's where the single people hang out, your odds go way up, right? And there's alcohol involved, so find all the ways to increase your probability.
Right. No, I love that. So explain what TLO is for people who might not know what that is.
So it's actually a program we're not supposed to use for real estate, for marketing. But it's a research program. There are a bunch of them. There's like IDI Core. There's the longest list of them. Shoot, now I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there's a ton of them. TLO is a hard one to get, and a lot of times you can't get approved for it unless you're a licensed private investigator or if you've got certain credentials, you're an attorney. Some people can work their way through it, but that's a little harder one to get. Still, a lot of the other ones like the IDI Core and some of those, it's just a data provider. It gives name, address, phone number, relationship information, and background information. You might spend $100, $200 a month on the program, but you can get really good intel. So you can get a hold of somebody. You can get a hold of relatives.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I looked at some of it, but like I said, it's real hard to get access to. So hypothetically, if someone wanted to get that and not use it for real estate, how would they get access to that?
If they say that they're, okay. There's like a Trojan horse kind of way in, I guess. This isn't how I did it, but a lot of people that I know do it this way. They have a rental portfolio and they actually need it to validate information on the rental applicant's application, to verify, is this the correct phone number? Is this her prior address? All those kind of things. If you use it for that, you can use it. Also, if you're a note maker, a lot of people do seller finance deals to get the loan applicants to verify the information there. You can't make credit decisions or decisions based on it, but you can verify the information.
Right.
That's a good cause to get it. Now, you might make some other calls by looking people up, trying to market to them maybe, but yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I haven't thought of it that way. I was thinking of the debt collection way.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's super smart. 'Cause, yeah, I mean, really, data's the new oil, man. It's key. You want to make sure you're not spending time calling the wrong people. There's nothing more frustrating than calling someone and it's not even the right person. And
Yeah, I've had people specifically working with weaker data providers and not able to quite get through, and their sales pipeline was just struggling. When they switched to the better contact information and data, it literally changed what they were doing.
Yeah.
So it's that meaningful.
yeah, it's crazy like how much stuff like they actually have on you when you look at like some of those data providers,
Oh
like
my
license
gosh.
plates. They got like driver's license, like like everything is tracked somewhere. Like there's a file with your name on it. And
Yeah, we had a really hard time finding somebody, and one of the private investigators had a different level of access to TLO because they were licensed private investigator than we had. So they put their information in, they choose what car is theirs, they determine that, and there's a tracking software that video cameras are on, like police cars, tow trucks, all these different types of all these different places and services,
Yeah.
and they all pay into the service. So they collect the data and they share it.
Wow.
So when you log in, you can see a heat map of where that car is traveling, how often was it picked up by cameras and registered. So we heat mapped a person to basically about a half-mile radius, and we realized they're staying in a hotel there.
Wow.
So we found them in a hotel.
that's wild.
Yeah. There's another gal, she was getting ready to be a defendant in a lawsuit. We just couldn't find her in the North Texas area, and we were able to find her that way to get service to her.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's nuts. What's the craziest story you've had, or is that it, or like what's the craziest you've done, like hoops you've had to jump through, or to like track someone down or find someone?
Oh my gosh, dude. We found people all over the world. Found people in Germany, Switzerland. We found a guy in Peru. He owned 1/4 of 1% of a property. So it was an immaterial share. The family said that he was like a crazy person and whatever, and he defected after he got out of the social services. Turns out he just met some girl down there and didn't have any interest in connecting with his family because they were crazies. He was just living down here quietly. So we had a PI, we found him. But he didn't really want to be found by a lot of people.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say he wasn't working really hard to hide it, but that was his thing. We did find another guy right before a tax sale. He lived in New Jersey, but he was on vacation in Canada. We found him with a private investigator in Canada on his vacation 2 days before the tax sale to get that signed.
Wow.
Another guy we ended up finding in a homeless shelter in the middle of a big MSA. God, this was a private investigator had to track this guy down too. Folks like this, they don't have current cell phones. When they get one, it's the prepay, so it's hard to get the data on that. But a private investigator ended up getting some information about something about his disability payment. I don't remember how he did it, but we ended up finding him in the homeless shelter there.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were able to cut a deal with the guy.
That's crazy. That's super cool.
Yeah. So that sounds wild. When you look at it in the scope of what you're doing, it might cost you $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to find this guy with a good private investigator in your location or a different location. And while that sounds like a lot of dollars, when he's the last person you need to complete a deal that makes you 50 or 100 grand, or some cases more,
Yeah.
you laugh at it and you say, I'd spend that money all day long.
Right.
But one of the problems I find with a lot of investors in the single family or the small tract land investing spaces, they're just afraid to do that. They'll spend all their time. They'll spend $10,000 worth of their own time, but they won't give $3,000 to a service provider to get the last piece.
Yeah.
So that was something that we embraced early on, is really spending the money to get things done right. The right attorneys, the right PIs, just the right everything, the right surveyors, not the ones that screwed up all the time.
Yeah.
It made a huge difference in how quickly we could get things done professionally.
Yeah, I love that. Now, is that a mindset you kind of came in with, or like that you had from the get-go, or was that like you hired the wrong guys and then got tired of doing that?
To me, it's logic. I mean, I didn't have any money when I was in the oil field, made money, had all this money saved up. And I looked at it, and it was very like, I don't know, to me it made a ton of sense. I'm looking at a deal that I can buy for $5,000 and it's worth $50,000, but I can't figure out how to get this one last defect solved. I look at it and say, what's the most that I would spend to get this fixed? If I'm in it for $5,000 and it's worth $50,000, I'd spend $10,000 or $20,000 because I'm still gonna make good money, right?
Yeah.
So at that point, I'm like, who can fix my problem? Who can answer my issue? Who can deal with this? And I found that it never really cost me quite that much. But when you're willing to pay, you'd be surprised at the professional help you can get.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I feel like people just focus on like saving the pennies, and there's a dollar right over there. They can just go pick it up.
Right. That points me in another direction. Something I'd recommend to folks that are newer in this business, really getting started and trying to make their way. It doesn't seem like your reputation matters so much because in the beginning you're nobody. No one knows you. You don't know anybody. But along the way, your reputation does matter, and you start to find that out. And what I would find in the professional services, when I was a nobody and had almost no money and not really a track record or any kind of reputation, the attorneys didn't really want to pay attention to me. When I would call other professional services, like a surveyor, I couldn't get them to really pay attention. Yeah, we can have it out in 3 weeks. And you know what they listen to? They listen to money. So when the attorneys would say, hey, this is the bill, or we'll send you the bill after the meeting, I'd pay them right then.
Yeah.
Let me write you a check right now. Well, I'm not going to have the invoice. That's okay, I'll pay right now. How much is it? Estimate, I'll pay you now. I wanted them to know that anytime they serviced me or paid attention to me, they're getting paid and I get paid right now.
Yeah.
And you'd be surprised, while everyone's scared of attorneys, you'd be surprised how many of them don't collect a lot of revenue because collections are harder than you think. So, or another thing is the attorneys would say, okay, your deposit, your retainer is going to be $2,500 to get started. I'd give them $5,000. It sounds like more money in the moment, but when you do that, it signals to that attorney, I'm not horsing around. You're not going to have to chase me for money.
Yeah.
I'm serious. But in turn, every time I call, they answer. Every time I email, they respond. So I've got the attention of professionals in this town with my little $5,000 retainer that people with big money can't even get because they're chintzy.
Right. No, that's a great point. Yeah, I know from my perspective, just clients we've had that just pay right away. I'm like, oh wow, this person's great. They do what they say they're going to do, and they pay you right away. I'm like, oh, that's my favorite client. I want to go up above and beyond and reciprocate and provide extra value for them. So that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly.
No, I love that. So going back to somebody who's brand new, starting out. So you mentioned how to find the best data. So and then you also mentioned about prioritizing that tax delinquent list. How do you prioritize it, and which ones should people focus on first?
Well, I'll go back to logic again. If you look at, let's just say you look at a neighborhood where land or houses, either one is worth $100,000 as it sits. So let me distinguish that first too. A lot of folks say that they always focus on the ARV because they're trying to make a wholesale spread, or what everyone's fixated on the ARV. I'm not. I'm focused on what's worth today. If you see other shitty beat up houses on MLS, which they're out there if you look,
right.
What's that one sell for? Okay, what's mine worth? What's another vacant lot worth? What's mine worth? Not if you do other value add, what's it worth right now? Once you establish the value, I want to pay less than that. So let's go back to the $100,000 example. If you're looking at a delinquent tax list, and this neighborhood you're looking at the zip code, property's worth $100,000, well, if you have 50 or 90 grand owed in taxes, it's gonna be harder to make margin, right?
Right.
So you don't wanna go that high. So you need to set a threshold that's lower than that. But there's this behavior about folks that are delinquent on their taxes. Think about it this way. Early on, I made a bunch of poor financial decisions, didn't have any money, charged on the credit card. The bill comes, I'm like, oh shit, I don't have no money to pay for this.
Right.
The first month, what happens? I'm gonna get caught up. I'm gonna get my paycheck in 3 days and I'm gonna pay it. It's gonna happen. I believe it.
Right.
Well, when my paycheck comes, I gotta pay my cell phone bill so it doesn't get cut off. And I gotta buy groceries because I need food, obviously. And now I have 2 months worth of credit card bill. Man, okay, I'm gonna get this paid, but you know what? I didn't pay it last month and nothing happened to me yet. I'm gonna try to pay this. Now it's twice the size. Now it's growing. By the time you hit the 3rd and 4th month, you're like, fuck it. I can't pay it. I know I'm not gonna pay it. I can't get caught up. It is what it is. You've already come to that reality, right? It's like that with all debts. Property taxes as well.
Right.
You miss the first year payment, you're like, oh, I'm gonna get it figured out, it's gonna happen. By the time the 2nd year happens, you're like, I'm underwater, dude.
Yeah.
I'm not coming back from this. So I learned early on, after making so many calls, I don't want to talk to the person who's delinquent 3 months. I want a couple years.
Yeah.
Earnest money, that's got to happen.
Right.
A lot of people have strategies around that. I'm not going to get into that, but you do have to have a little bit to get going. Outside of that, the next most important thing to me is the volume of calls.
Right.
So many people that I've spent time with in my organization or in a coaching program or whatever, they have all these problems. And the first thing I ask them is, how many hours did you spend on the phone last week?
Right.
I don't care how good or how terrible you are, more hours on the phone is going to get you closer to some yes. I had a friend in college who was terrible with women, but dude would ask every girl out. I'm not kidding, it was bananas. The dude got dates because he would literally ask everybody out and eventually someone would just agree.
Right.
I think it's the same with this. Now, the more time you spend, the better you're going to get. You're going to improve and become skilled.
Right.
But you've got to spend a lot of time on the phone. The other thing is, even highly skilled people, if they're not spending enough hours, this is a game of odds.
Right.
You might be leaning the odds in your favor by calling people in an area that's depressed, calling properties that you believe are distressed, all these things. But if you don't make enough calls, you will not get the deals.
Right. 100%. I think just to elaborate on that a bit too, I think, like you're saying, getting those reps in, like you're going to get better that much faster too, and you're going to get, if you can just keep that consistency. I don't know if you met him at the event, but I have a friend, Drew Wilson. He does his whole brand's called The Damn Leads. It's literally it fixes everything. You know, it's literally that simple.
So the challenge to that is folks are excited about making money. They want to try something, and they hear about you can make a lot of money in real estate on one deal, more so than they would make in a quarter or half a year at their old job. And that's exciting. And it's exciting about researching and signing up for a program and all this. But the reality sets in when you've been on the phone for 2 weeks in a row, 20 hours this week, 30 hours the next week. Dude, phone work is tough.
It is. Oh yeah, it's mentally draining. Like most people don't, if you haven't done it, you don't get it. But it's like, I just don't want to talk to fucking anyone. I just want to, you know. Like,
dude, and some people aren't cut out for it. Like, I don't know that I'm cut out for it. I mean, I spent 3-4 years doing it all the time because I was so hungry and just refused to be poor that that was my only way out of that.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, when I was able to back away from it and get some help, dude, it made a huge difference.
Yeah, 100%. Now, a big question I see people ask, I'll ask it of you, is can that be skipped? Like the 3 to 4 years you spent making the calls yourself, can it be skipped, or do you think it's something that can be outsourced right away?
I mean, I see people do it, but you know, if somebody's that good, it's going to be hard to just get them an affordable rate. They're just going to show up and work for you and let you make all the money.
Right.
A lot of folks that I see running sales organizations in the wholesale and investment real estate space, you know, the single family and stuff like that, a lot of them are really good at sales. They're really good on the phone. And they're the leader. They may not be a great business person, but they're usually good on the phone. And that's what gets them through a lot of it, I find.
For sure. And then since you've hired a bunch of people, you've had a lot of people do the position, do you think sales, or like specifically for wholesaling, can anybody learn how to talk to people on the phone, or do you think it's a certain personality type or a certain type of person?
I don't believe that, man. I've heard people say anybody can be taught to do it. I don't believe it.
Yeah.
I don't. I mean, there are some people that are natural. Some people can be trained and be improved. But there are a lot of people I've seen that are just terrible at it, and they hate it, and they don't have the personality. It just doesn't work.
Right. Yeah, it's tough. Yeah, I've had hires too. It's like, dude, just doing the work and everything, not a different business, but yeah, it's just.
Yeah, if you can't find your way out of a fucking paper bag, man, you're not going to make the sale happen. This isn't your deal.
Yeah. But yeah, I still think it is a skill that like can be developed and you get better at, like anything, but it's, yeah, I think that definitely I don't know what it is, but yeah, I definitely think there is like a certain X factor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Even folks that aren't extremely skilled at it, if they're hungry enough and they're willing to try to do it and figure it out, a lot of times they can figure it out, even if it's not their best thing, but that's probably not the person that's going to be doing it a long time either.
Right. Yeah, I think probably for me, I think the biggest hurdle is just kind of getting over that like constant rejection. I think some people just don't deal with that well at all, and just like, yeah, they just shut down.
Yeah.
But that's huge. So, man, going back to that, what are some of like the KPIs, like a new person you're coaching or someone's, in this position we're talking about, what like numbers should they try to hit every day, and like what should be their targets?
So we've run, small call center with VAs and local salespeople. We've had that. And then we've also had even partners on the phone. We've had a big mix of that. I find when you're calling a lot of data, you're getting warm leads that are nurtured and warmed up by a VA and then handed over. The salespeople in our office, 50, 60 calls a day range is where they need to be at. If we're calling distress stuff, we're not using VAs. People in our office that are higher paid salespeople that are well trained, they're doing it. They're probably getting 30 calls a day, half that.
Okay. What are the, have you tried the VA method? Like, what kind of results have you seen as opposed to having, actual real people, not that they're not real people, but, actual real people in the U.S.?
People, yeah. Well, I've seen folks really try to use VAs to do sales. I think it's a mistake. I think you need to use a VA to just find out if they're interested in selling or not, just qualifying them.
Yeah.
Once they're qualified, they need to come to a salesperson here.
Right.
We tried a lot of different ways, and what I found is the more sophisticated you get the salesperson or the VA, and the more they go through that sales process, the better you have, a better shot you have of losing those people.
Right.
So that's why we just stopped early on. But remember this: when someone calls me and they're from like India and they don't have the vernacular and the dialect and all that are all over the place, I know what's going on.
Right.
But I'm not the dude who's going to be selling my stuff for half price. But think about the person that's going to listen to that dude.
Yeah.
And be like, okay, well, maybe I'll listen. That might be the kind of person you want to talk to, right? So it's probably a good filter. So I found that mattered too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, at one point when we were doing commercial, I was concerned we needed higher quality people with the commercial. But I also found when you have the higher quality people, you really kill a lot of their time. We were calling anywhere between 10 and 50,000 prospects a month when that business was as big as it was at the height of its operation. And we would end up with, gosh, I have to remember these metrics now. If we would start the month, I think it was with 10,000 prospects, we would end up with about 3,000 warm leads. And then we would end up closing somewhere around, it was like 5, or we would contract 5 or 10 properties and we would close 50% of those.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So when we got to the point where we were at 40 and 50,000 prospects a month, we were in the 10 to 20 contract a month range. Yeah, but remember, think about that. 30,000 prospects to wind up with 30 contracts and half close.
Yeah.
Now, the difference is if you were to do that on a traditional wholesale, like single family, it wouldn't work because that op would be too expensive. My overhead was 80 to 100,000 a month in that op.
Wow.
But when you're it's a lot of those months on a low month be 200-300 grand, on a high month 800-900 grand net. So the cost of doing business at a 80 or 100,000 versus a $500,000 a month, your overhead is 25%, 20%. That still makes a lot of sense.
Right.
Although it's a very inefficient process, the outcome makes it work.
So how do you look at that? Because you mentioned too, you hire the best people and things. How do you kind of look at overhead and things like that? How do you know, if there's things that should be cut or what to focus on there?
First thing, it's just profitability. We've always hired behind the curve. We've had highly competent owner-operators who are willing to put in time and work and make money. And as they make the money themselves, as they flip their own deals, they figure this out on their own, money hits the bank account. You start out 50 grand, now you got 100, now you got 200, now you got 400, you got cash in the account. Now what do I do with it? Okay, I have money, a little bit of money now to work with, but I'm out of time. I don't have any more time left. Okay, let me hire a person to help so that I can get a little bit of time, buy some time.
Right.
Now I got an assistant. Okay, now I'm not ordering things, transactionally doing things, I'm working on just the leads. Your profit should go up a little bit. Definitely a multiple of what you pay your assistant, your profit should go up more than that.
Right.
Now you say, okay, this is getting better. Maybe I'll hire a person to work the phones with me. Maybe I'll hire 2 of them. But as the money in the account grew, we were always careful. As the money in the account grew, we could afford to pay more. And as long as we made more money than we spent on the person by multiples, we were okay. When you get to a company that's that size, once you start to include like owner comp and all that, we ran a lot of times at a 50% net margin, which is really good. Owners are getting some comp, you're covering your overhead and all, that's good.
Right. I love it. So I know you have a mastermind event coming up. You want to talk about that for a bit?
Oh, yeah. April 22nd and 23rd here in San Antonio, distressed property acquisition, me, a couple of my partners, and then 2 other pretty high-level operators from the Dallas. So once you hit the threshold of a couple years, the delusion is generally convert it into reality. Like,
right.
We get it.
Yeah, there's a problem.
So, on a $100,000 neighborhood at 3% property taxes, they're going to owe $6,000 to $10,000 if they're 2 to 3 years behind. They'll owe less than $10,000. So once you get to that $10,000 to $20,000 mark, that's a good range for me. So I'd take that list and I would filter it and get delinquent taxes of between $6,000 and $10,000, $6,000 and $20,000 maybe. That means they're at least 2 or 3 years behind, but they're not so far behind that the equity's all chewed up.
Right.
So on a $100,000 deal, I can pay $20,000 to taxes, give the seller $10,000 or $20,000, and still be in it for less than half of what it's worth.
Yeah.
So you see how you can stack your budgetary expenses and kind of say, this is my pro forma that I'm going to go into. Now, if you get one with less taxes and the seller will accept less, great. Or maybe you have less taxes, but the seller wants more. I'm still under 50 cents on the dollar. Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I kind of had something set up like that. The first few calls that I made, and when I started this, I didn't. I was just trying to make sure there was money left for me.
Yeah.
After doing it a while, I thought, okay, I kind of have a model here.
No, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
All about working smarter and harder. And yeah, I think it's getting organized. I think it's Lincoln or someone said something about, if he's going to chop a tree down, he'd spend half the day, 3 hours, he'd spend 2 hours sharpening the axe.
Oh, yeah.
But no, I think that's great. So they have that, they have the list. Okay, this is what we're going to focus on. One question I have before I ask my next question, I guess, is when do they actually get foreclosed on? Like, can you kind of explain what the tax delinquent process looks like?
It's a mystery. Actually, I think I know. I thought it was a mystery in the beginning.
It seems like it.
It does. So in Texas, only a few counties do the foreclosure themselves with in-house attorneys. Most of the counties hire a third-party law firm. There are about half a dozen in Texas that do the tax foreclosure on behalf of the tax authorities, the tax entities. So most cities or municipalities will have a threshold. Once the property hits a certain amount of delinquency, it's usually within a year it starts getting looked at.
Right.
Now, if it's strangely enough, I notice with LLCs, they get foreclosed on quicker. If it's owned by just a regular individual, sometimes it gets foreclosed on quicker. Sometimes I do notice the more complicated it is to execute the foreclosure lawsuit, the longer it takes. So what I mean by that is in Texas, tax foreclosures are judicial foreclosures. The trustee for the mortgage just doesn't go down and post a foreclosure and sell it at the auction, in a month or so. The tax entity has to hire the law firm to file a tax lawsuit, serve the owners, and then notice and then bring it to sale. So you have to file a lawsuit. That's the judicial tax foreclosure. So it takes a while.
Yeah.
But what happens if you can't find Logan to get him civil service? You keep trying. If you can't find him, eventually the court will grant the county the right to do citation by publication, putting a notice up there on the courthouse steps. But that's after they've been trying to serve them.
Right, okay.
So it can delay the process. Another issue there is if they can't identify who all the owners are, it's even harder. So with all that said, the shortest time I've seen is about a year. You file foreclosure within a year of delinquency. Some of them I've seen 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
And there is a condition where if you live in the home and you're over a certain age, you can file, I forget what it's called now. It's a deferral. If you're handicapped over a certain age, you can file a deferral and you will never pay your taxes and they won't foreclose. But the taxes will continue to accrue, some of it up to 38% interest.
Wow. And
the moment you die, they will foreclose and sell the property and get all their money. The tax office will. Yeah.
That's crazy.
So there's a lot of different steps, but another thing I found is the tax law firms aren't the most organized in the world. Files stack up. And an attorney leaves and a new one comes in and they can just sit.
Yeah.
So sometimes we would call and ask, what's the status? They'd have to go dig up a file.
Yeah.
I don't even know.
That's crazy. So I guess going back to, so how does somebody get the tax list? They're like, okay, this makes a lot of sense. I want to get the list. How do they get that?
The county. Go down, you can go down to your tax office. Some counties it's $20. Some counties it's up to a couple hundred. You pay them, they give it to you on a CD or they'll email it to you. can come in a couple different ways. I've seen it come in a CSV or an Excel file, which is great. If not, it comes in this wacky file. You got to pay someone who knows how to use a computer better than most people to convert it into a useful file.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I've been doing is just asking ChatGPT for everything. But like, how do I convert this file? So we had some like pictures. You say, that's.
Oh, they'll do that.
Yeah, I'll tell you real quick. Just do that. I'm like, show me an app, because like we did our last event, we got all the photos, and I'm like, I didn't know what to do with the format, and I'm like, ChatGPT did. So.
Crazy. Wow.
But okay, that's awesome. So what's your sales process like when you talk to these people? How do those conversations go?
Well, I've tried just about, when I call a seller of a property like this, it's very straightforward, very discovery oriented, very non-threatening. I don't do a typical sales process that a lot of people do, like used cars, or they box you in the corner and use all these like strategies. That's not it, or not for me. And I've tried all of them. But with these kind of folks, it just doesn't work well.
Yeah.
Usually I just call and ask a lot of questions. I've got some interest in some property over here. It looks like you might have multiple owners, or maybe there's some stuff going on. Are you the cousin of Jenny, or are you the one that actually owned the house? Or are you, I don't know, Aurelia's great-grandma or great-great-granddaughter? I'm just kind of open and ask questions, and sometimes folks won't want to hear it, but you can't change that. Otherwise, once I identify that I'm the right person, I tell them, hey, it looks like there's a lot of taxes. Looks like there might be ownership problems. I deal with stuff like this, but try to figure out if this is a project that would be good for us.
Right.
Do you want to talk about that? I try to just get them to open up.
Yeah.
Another strategy that I find works really well is that folks are used to getting called, just like harassed all the time. And a lot of times I'll tell them, hey, if you don't want to work with a guy like me, I totally get it. Why don't you just give me 5 or 10 minutes to talk? I'll tell you, if you give me the information, I'll tell you how to fix it. I got lawyers in my office. I've done this 1,000 times now. I'll tell you how to fix it. I'll be completely honest. You want to talk to my attorney and ask him questions? I'm happy for you to do that too. It won't cost me very much. And at the end of the call, if you think that it's best for you to go do it, you're going to make the most money doing that. I'm completely cool with that, and I'll give you my roadmap. But then at that time, if you think it's a better idea for me, then I'll look at it as a project. And you'd be surprised people get free information from a highly skilled professional on their problem that they've not been able to solve for 10 years. You got their ears, they're listening.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's the most important part of any sales process, is asking questions and literally and then actively listening. I feel like a lot of people, they'll just go through the list and like, tell me this, tell me that, tell me that. And it's like the person knows you're not listening. You're just waiting for your turn to ask the next question. And it's super off-putting. But yeah, like honestly, I tell everyone, I want to do 80 Pareto's 80-20 principle. I want them to do 80% of the talking, me 20%. And sometimes honestly even less. Like I want them to tell me everything. Like, that works super well for me too. Have you ever checked out any of Chris Voss stuff, the FBI negotiator?
I have. I like his stuff. I read Never Split the Difference. The only thing I've used some of those tactics as well. The only thing that bothers me is I've had a hard time with not splitting the difference, because I find so many people like to split the difference.
Right. They want to feel like they got a deal.
Yeah, and when you're in this situation, many times I tell people, if I meet you in the middle, will you do it? And while he advocates to meet closer to him because of different strategies, the reason for me it's different is I'm already close to me because I'm already buying an extreme discount. I'm already having issues to solve. I've got pricing so far down here that if I meet them in the middle, they're already close to me anyway.
Right.
So theoretically, it's a little different.
Yeah, I think my whole philosophy is try to find gold nuggets from anything.
Gold nuggets?
They're just like kind of like, what are some takeaways I can take? And you just got me with the Chris Voss thing, motherfucker. I'm like, oh yeah, it works. That one works great though. Like,
it does.
I do it to Bree, and she gets so mad. She's read the book too. And like, I'll do it a few times. She won't catch on, but I'll keep doing it till she does. That's too funny. But there's a bunch of good ones in there though that you can take. But like anything, there's stuff that like it's not as applicable. But something that I would definitely tell folks who are kind of in the early days, just and getting started. It doesn't take as much money as you expect. It does take some money. You're going to need to be able to get some information, some data, get on a phone. You got to have the basics.
if you get someone to agree to sell you something, you got to figure out how to like get to this area. We're going to do a 50-person mastermind here at the Argyle, at the local private social club.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we've got it's 2 full days. You know, the first half of the day is kind of more instructional. And then the last half of the day is like roundtable. We're going to bust out into groups, basically 10 to 15 people per group, and hit all the topics we got. We're going to start from the beginning. How's everybody marketing? How's everybody making phone calls? How's everybody capitalizing? How are you negotiating? How's your business structured? Everything. And you'll have folks, we're breaking up each group with very inexperienced all the way to the top experience level. So there'll be at least one of us in each group.
Right.
And then I've actually invited a couple of special guests that we'll sprinkle into. So the event will work well for folks that are very experienced because they'll be dealing with some of the top level operators like this.
Yeah.
Also works well for relatively new folks.
I love
because they'll get everybody in that group.
Yeah, I like that, breaking into small groups, and it sounds like it's super tactical.
Yeah. One of the issues you run into is when you go to large events, it's a speaker talking to you, and you can ask a couple questions, but like the conversation you and I can have right now, you can, if you wanted to ask me questions for an hour about what I said to people on phone calls, you could do it, and I'd give you the answer. That's how it'll be structured.
Nice. I love that. That's huge. So let's talk about this. We're in this badass podcast studio you just built out here. Super cool office, which love your office, man. It's fucking really cool.
Thanks.
What's up with the podcast? What's it called? When's it going to be happening?
I think I've got the name. We're working for about an 8-week start date. You know, my social media program has been all over the place, just trying different stuff, but I haven't spent enough time to really make it how I want it. Although it's worked well, it can be far better. And I would show up one day a month and film some stuff and just let it roll and see how it worked out. That's literally how my program has worked.
Yeah.
Now it's a much more focused, attentive approach. Everything is distressed property because that's where 70% of my income comes from. I have the support to help and train and teach and JV with that. So everything's narrowed down. The podcast will be called Dirty Deeds.
I like that.
It's specifically distressed property. That's it. The first 20 guests are extreme experts. These people you don't know exist. You have not seen them on social media, most of them. You haven't heard of them. I found them by digging through court filings, calling local escrow people, through referrals, like some of the weirdest places you'd imagine, but the stories are absolutely insane.
Yeah.
So I'll be able to release one a week.
Nice.
We'll start releasing in about 8 weeks. Yeah.
Man, I'm excited. Yeah, I definitely want to listen to that because that's something I know pretty much nothing about, and I know you've killed it with that. So
you're not. I don't anticipate you'll see a following like some of the massive ones because it's so niche.
Yeah.
But I realize that's what we do. It's a niche thing, and what I like about it is folks from wholesaling and house flipping, if they want to try something different that's got bigger margins, and while it's complicated, there's a lot of support out there, surprisingly. So there is a good feeder audience to it, but it's still a very niche-oriented thing and not for everybody. So I anticipate it will be more of a cult following type. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think that's the way to do it too, and I think that people probably that are going to go dive deeper into that, and it sounds like it's going to be more tactical. There'll probably be more action takers and people that are probably going to get some crazy results. But I love it, man. So last thing I would ask too, about going back to that process for the new person from start to finish, how they, if you started over, when you have those deals where there's multiple heir situations, how does that work out? Like, so I know you've mentioned before, like you can just buy a partial.
The fractional ownership.
Yeah, the fractional ownership. Can you kind of explain that and how that works?
It's like a 6-pack of Coke. There are 6 owners individually to the one property, and they can be bought out individually. But the problem you have there is if those 6 don't agree, they can't sell the property unanimously, and you have to all agree and sell unanimously to get title insurance.
Right.
And everybody wants title insurance because lenders want insurance, buyers want insurance, they don't want the risk. So unless everybody agrees unanimously, you can't sell together. So that's what prevents those folks. That's what requires all of them to get together and get on the same page to sell. Now, a lot of times we see someone that says, I'm not selling that, you can't make me, and they're crazy, like literally like crazy.
Yeah.
And the other 4 are like, dude, this is our only money, this is the only money we inherited from our mom, we want to get rid of this thing. And the crazy person won't let them. So those are times where it's sometimes a good fit. We have to interview folks, make sure it's the right fit. Let's just say the last person is like the one living in the house and they got nowhere to go. I try not to look at that stuff because I don't want it to be that situation. But the person living in the house that says, I'm happy to leave, I don't want it anymore. I'd rather get my money and go. Then that's a situation we'll look at. But you can buy one at a time. Now, you can't get title insurance, but you can buy one at a time. And once you aggregate all of the shares, then I could sell and get title insurance. But if I got that last sticky person, there are different ways to go about it. Sometimes I can pay them a little more. Sometimes they have judgments and liens against them that might cause some negotiation. Sometimes you have to file a lawsuit to get a partition, which is a judge that forces the sale. This can happen. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, it's super cool knowing you have options. I know when I first started, before I heard you talk about it, I'm like, oh, just pass on these deals because there's it sounds like a nightmare and it doesn't seem like you do anything. So do you guys partner with other people? Do you guys JV with people if they have deals like that?
I do. If you go, just type in loganfullmer.com. Got a website there, and I take JV submissions on there. It asks a bunch of questions, and that's basically a review.
Yeah.
We'll look at it for free, and if it's a deal we'll JV with you, we'll make you an offer. We do. Probably a quarter of the deals we do here are JV deals.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love that. So, and then where's the best place? And you kind of mentioned it. How can people connect with you online, and how can they find out about the mastermind you have going?
If you go to my website, I've got ticket sales for the mastermind. Also, I've spent a lot of time on Instagram these days, so that'd be a great place to go. Just pop my name in Instagram, you'll find me there.
I love it, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this, man. This was great.